Hi Gemini, thank you very much for joining me. Polina here talking to you about Saturn going through ninth house here in Aquarius. It is not too late to be nice and to be calm. Try not to make too much sense of everything right now. It'll all kind of like all come back to center and it will be probably exactly where it's meant to be. But the main overall feeling or fear that I'm getting from you guys is that it's not quite right. It's not quite right. And if by the end of Saturn and Capricorn things did not stick, or if by the end of Saturn and Capricorn things felt like they were not meant to be, or everything fell apart, it has to be seen in a greater wisdom, and it has to be seen for its greater cause and effect. If this didn't come true, if this person ran away, if that person stayed, if this came to a closure, if this came to an end, if those things actually worked but you didn't even realize they would work, there's a kind of like inconsistency sometimes that a Gemini just cannot work with. Like, I can't believe. Because people sometimes with Gemini aspects work with perfection and within the realm of the perfect true. And sometimes there are more than one truth. So you are more like the galactic global truth finder, or the innocent truth finder, which is something that is really beautiful and perfect for you, but it can also be very romantic and far too futile to be true. Because by the end of Saturn Capricorn, things really assume, things really emotionally, mentally, physically, financially, ginormously uh, come together. So they all come to an end, or they all come to a start. They breathe. They breathe. They voice. They feel good on an overall massive, like all-encompassing scale. So, for example, you might have a very, very romantic truth, and you might not see the cause and effect behind things, or you might be trying to nurture yourself or re-nurture you. You might be trying to claw at life, or even try to breathe wisdom into something that is not even thinking of you, or that is not connecting to you. But the main thing here is basically to start seeing this as kind of like a galactic or global, ginormous, gigantuan comeback, in the sense of what is who you are and who you are to be as well, all imprinted, and what is home, and where it is that you're not nervous, and where it is that you are right, and where it is that you are meant to be kept, and who you are meant to be with. It should already come to a nice position or a nice picture by the end of Capricorn Saturn. So if you don't feel that now, and you're starting to question me, other people, no, 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 but that was wrong, but it could have been better, it could have been bigger, it could have been more, don't try. So basically, you have to come to an end of your speculation and thinking and feeling about things too much, and trying not to see the whole picture. So I feel sometimes you don't care about the whole world, you just want it right. And that sometimes can damage us, that can damage us. So by the end of this transit, as inevitably Saturn goes into Pisces in 2023 and Jupiter goes into Aries, you will know why you may no longer perhaps be in a certain situation, or you will know why there are greater places for you yet. But these are the places now. So by the end of Saturn in Capricorn, be okay with that. And then this will come. So maybe what you already can perceive and see as the better future, or the better path, the better global outcome, that is gonna come, but maybe not quite right now. So maybe in 2023, 2024, things are going to really be juicy and strong for you. So you might be maybe even a little bit ahead of time for us all. And your vulnerability and need for a greater result really shows us the finger, or shows us the door. And sometimes people can just walk through, walk past, and not be able to participate with you anymore, since you wanted it all to be perfect now. Some of the time you might actually accidentally combust or rip out a huge future because you were so unsure about the past. And it also feels to me that the perfect things show. It feels to me that the perfect people show, the perfect collective show, and the perfect things that are there for you must become obvious and simple. So by the 21st of March 2020 on the surface. There should be something already on the surface for you to find. And then by the end of this transit, 2023, there's going to be things even more on the surface. So by the 7th of March 2023, things are going to be super obvious and super calming and also super nice. But at this point in time, by the end of Capricorn Saturn, you might not see perfection, as your sense and sentimentality and romanticism about what perfection and truth of the future really is could be a little bit beyond the normal. And sometimes also your expectations might be beyond the normal, your idealism might be beyond the normal, your ideals about life might be beyond the normal, your future cannot right now be seeded any better than this. You know what I mean? It's like your vulnerability with that, though, can sometimes be abyss. And one of the reasons why I am also seeing this in myself and other people struggling during this time is that you can't believe that this is all you get. It's like, are these the pictures now? Like, are these all? Is this it? You know? And some of us with Gemini aspects can sometimes suffer more than we need, as some of these cause and effects that brought us here are really, really phenomenal and wise. And for some people, there is going to be a big certainty, complete, or disconnect if we don't just become okay and kind of polarity free about it right now, because it's going to get worse. So if we are angry right now, if you are angry, if you feel fear or you feel a dissatisfaction with the way that things landed in the last month, and if you're feeling vulnerable or hurt, or if you don't really feel any understanding as to like how the world works or what it was all about, or like what the hell happened really, you know, there has to be an idea perhaps, or a very mild person or somebody there for you to basically steer your cause and effect in sometimes a completely different route. And honestly, some of the things that went really, really strong and became very robust for you in the last month might return, and maybe not. It's just more important that you don't work too hard. You like don't overwork it. You don't work into your prism of respect or control, or self-respect or presentation or idealism, truth, space, and time. Vulnerability really shows during this particular energy, and sometimes Gemini can lose everything because they don't feel control, or they don't understand those things that are happening now. And I do understand, you know, even talking about me, like in the sense that I'm a Gemini house person in Peru, there's going to be a lot of change and karmic issues, or even catastrophes for some of us, if we can't just be loyal to the cause and effect that we have now, by now, fully emotionally or spiritually or physically harvested. And one of the greatest things that I believe is going to happen for all of us with Gemini aspects at the turning of this age, at the turning, is that we're going to start to really have no qualm, and not to pick fights with things that we don't even need to speak to, and not to pick fights with ourselves and our greatest global calm. And I also trust, because you are turning into the next sign, we all turn into the next sign with age, as you're turning into um, Cancer, inevitably, essentially. And there's a North Node in Cancer here, and it's walking into your arms actually here, 2021. There needs to be a very, very nice, secure, deeply profound, and picturesque feeling of calmness and generosity and perhaps group activity, because you're going to be second to none, I believe, in certain collectives and certain spaces and time. But should you be too argumentative or too impolite, it might all collapse, or it might not be as strong. And those of us that are promised through space and time certain outcomes or certain individuals, so we are meant to be now alongside someone else, there's going to be perhaps no qualm, and sometimes it is very, very extraordinary as to how things can be muffled, or how things can come right, in a sense, in 1 or 2 weeks, or like in one day can solve a problem that was probably like there socially or energetically for quite a long time. So things that are promised, and things that are forever, or things that are for the true, or things that are for eternity, or things that are within greater reason, are going to, I believe, mend much faster if they are promised. So the promised lands, like the promised securities, or the promised informations, or the person that is promised to you, I trust will come through. The most important thing though is just not to show disrespect. I mean, we can get very disrespectful here sometimes, Gemini people, if we don't really trust and if we really don't feel that other people around us are that guru, or if we don't feel that things around us are integral, or if we feel that there is lack of integrity and trust with the society or part of civilization where you're from or where you're now seating yourself. There's going to be, I feel, more than that though. It also feels to me that there's going to be not enough bliss if people are too nitpicky, and there's always going to be a cause and effect for any kind of stagnation that sometimes happens out of self protection. So I believe that you might, perhaps as your friends, coronavirus or not, have to start working out and doing things that are happy and young and right for you, just simply to evolve these pendulums of experiences without searching within them for something else. But the something else will no longer be perhaps even available for some people. And for a lot of us, if it is not true by the end of Capricorn, Saturn, maybe it will never come true. And also, the one only reason perhaps that you do something or you try something or you're part of a certain therapy is because you're trying to get a certain result, and you're trying to receive from a certain group of people, a demographic, and that's also something that we need to show you and show ourselves. If you are working with someone, if you're talking to someone, if you are showing respect to a society, group of people, or organization just because you want something, and it might be just a very small result that you're after, but you might be biting your tongue, or you might be hitting up like all the wrong people or places. And the reason why sometimes is because you don't really know what it was that sort of led you there. And one thing that you might already see and you might be able to understand is that by the 22nd, so 2022nd year, you will have to see as to how your search for perfection, or that one little thing, or that one prism of convenience pushes you up against the wall, and what you go through or what you allow other people to manifest in your world because you wanted that one little thing. So for example, for a good conversation you might be paying a lot of money, or like for a very nice friend seemingly you might be bending over backwards, or you might be sleeping with someone just because you want to retain their friendship, or you might be in the wrong collective or group, or even the wrong country because you are trying to reap certain benefits, and that becomes very obvious to all of us. So we might actually push you around. So by the end of 2022, the end of Saturn and Aquarius, you might get a very harsh life long dream crumbling, or you might actually get somebody giving you a huge mirror back to yourself, or you might start to realize as to where you really find your self importance these days, and who you are being with, and what you are being based on your need for perfection and affection. Also human class. So it feels to me that human class, when you are there, how people react to you, where you belong in the world, which are the people that play with you, which are the human beings that surround themselves around you, and also like what are the different types of spells that you are living through socially, psychically, and perhaps economically. And it feels to me that you have to trust that we will not perhaps show you everything, but there's going to be other people that are going to mirror you back to you, and you're going to mirror them back to them. So it's like mirroring between us during this particular time. And it also feels to me that you're not going to get everything that you want perhaps by the end of 2023, but you're going to have to start to trust. And some of the times you will be asked, what are your values? What are your prisms? Which are your true potentialities? Or like, what are the true things that you mean to all of us? And you have to answer sometimes. So it's almost like a CV. It's like filling out a form. There are going to be some very, very big, truthful things coming out for all of us by the end of 22. And 23, yes, you will have to really stand up and understand how you idealize things, and what are those ideals coming to, and also what you walk into, or how you travel, or how you study, or how you maybe even have your tongue, you know, tongue behind your teeth, you're trying to like bite on yourself in order to succeed. So this is where subservience, and also not subservience, but like twisting of time, really has to be understood. So, like, are you lying to yourself or other people to keep yourself in the game? Are you giving people the wrong results? Are you becoming someone else? Or are you pretending to be somebody that you're not? Or are you trying to be soft focus and off center in order to be able to blend in a situation or circumstance? What are you doing to make money? You know, what are you doing to make friends? What are you doing to travel, to live like this? Like, where are you going? And how are you wanting to progress in the world of the everyday 3D human? And it feels to me that some of us with Gemini aspects have to really try not to fragment, because two-faced situations or two-faced phenomena are very, very easy, and they're like going to be spread out like far and wide during this particular transit, as people are going to try to be something they aren't in order to succeed, and for some people survive. And it also feels to me that you now might have to just understand the given. So at the beginning of this transit, as we are um, an interesting kind of like ending of a big cycle on the 21st of March here, 2020, you have to realize where you are. And you got to understand who you are with and what you're attracting and who is there and what is speaking to you and what are these normal, nice, simple things that are placed in front of you, and which are the people that are actually politely responding, and which are the things that are respecting you back. And you have to basically hear, trust, and try not to bring it to any kind of epic, emotional, romantic, or energetic climax. This can sometimes distort the whole field. So, if at the beginning of Aquarius you are no longer playful, you're no longer loving, and you just really don't trust or don't like something or somebody, this can become a hurricane or avalanche of things later, or just might not trust you back, or there might just not be enough connection or security or situations of trust. And it feels to me that also becoming better with us, becoming better at people, becoming better at self security in any kind of formal or informal way. One of the things that Geminis might want to equilaterate during the first part of this Saturn and Aquarius is just the turning of tides and having enough to think and dream about without making too many angles, and also not trying to anger other people into submission or into any kind of state of trust. And I also trust that any kind of polarity with everything that is happening, if you are going through something, if you are changing, if you are working with certain people, if you are walking around, it's really good not to make edge right at this time, maybe until it just naturally happens. But the thing here is that the ravenous part of us all, actually, especially in Gemini person, wants the conflict and wants to rocket sky high. And some of the time, even though in 2 or 3 years that is really important to have, like there will be sometimes like skyrocketing times way beyond your previous circumstance or vision, it feels to me that those visions or versions of you are not actually that fine if you can't accept the natural cause and effect that probably continues to be. So if you're going for something sparkly or somebody sparkly, if you are going for something that is better or that is the best, and you're sparking up yourself or your friends or your peers or other people, and you're trying to create angles and light and information and personal growth. So, like these personal, I suppose, outstanding experiences, that sometimes can be fine. But if you are not within your means, okay, if you're not living within your energetic, physical, financial, just any means, it might not last, or it might just light up enough to burn away your actual world. So the normal human day to day basic stuff has to be known and sown into it. So it's like the soil of everyday life must be all right, and it must be okay that yes, there is a home, or like yes, there is a human, or there is like some kind of like a perfect picture, or just a really nice calm within which then there's going to be roads and capacities to take you there, more likely in a slow way. But without that slow cooking here in Aquarius, Saturn, I don't believe you will get there. So the road ahead doesn't have to be like an elevator, you know, like that road towards freedom or that road towards financial outcomes or that person. It doesn't have to be that big jump that sometimes only Gemini can generate, but can be like fully always hungry for. It's like you're always looking perhaps for that huge reactivity from yourself or other people in order to conceive brand new realities, but they will bring you back to the ground. So it's like the higher the climb, the harder the fall sometimes, you know, and that can happen sometimes massively. It's like you sell your home, you sell everything you got, and just immigrate, or you just do all these crazy things, or you put the picture together way too fast and you build the Tower of Babylon way too high, you know? And then sometimes, like, words don't matter in the end. There's just like a crash and a crumble. And I actually trust that most of us with Gemini aspects have to see clearly now. And we have to understand that we are not maybe perhaps wanted entirely on one level to survive, because sometimes, you know, people have like sort of like a fetish for a Gemini person because they're so bright and beautiful. Sometimes you have to really consider the past, the cause and effect, and perhaps because you're so airy and you're so young, forever, eternally, you may not want to do the groundwork or the dirty work of keeping things in line or alight. And you may not trust us to know how to keep things tight and contained. And it also feels to me that you may not want other people to help you out, and you might not want another person to give you perhaps sometimes a feeling of constriction, and also like constricting people at your job or constricting teachers. You know, you might not want that constriction, but sometimes that constraint is right in order to get you along to a much happier, more normal and naturalistic path. And yes, sometimes it takes 2 years or 3 years to abandon the previous blueprint and to happily step into the new one. And I feel that is great. But then there are some Geminis that don't believe that is real, and they don't understand if I don't have it overnight, or if I don't have it in just 2 days, then what good am I? And I understand that's also like something I've done as a Libra person in an Aquarius house, you know, Aquarian house, Libra. There's just something that has to be mended first. And on some level, there's not going to be that many doors opening for some of us with Gemini aspects this transit around, because we are not hopeful enough for the rest of it. And we might want to come out of the collective and be the only person in the group that knows, or the only person that can do something. And that also has to be perhaps treated as something sincere, but also something that is immature or undergrown. And there's got to be kind of like a remembrance also, I believe and trust, created during this time. And if you are not in a state of remembrance, or if you're not in a state of grace or gratefulness, gratitude, it just doesn't feel right. So, like, the human journey, as far fetched as it can be sometimes, is perhaps not the only point of life. And it feels to me that maybe it's more about the grace and the connection or the purity of all things at once. And I also trust that many of us have to just basically be there for ourselves and other people, and we have to no longer be in this epic sense of intense high or intense regret in order to make us feel what we do. So it feels to me it's really important to keep things sometimes at ground level, and to maybe also allow human feelings to come through, absolutely, and to let things go as much as you can, and also allow the neurological endings, you know, like the neurological sensitivities to catch up to the climb or the fall. So I am definitely feeling you can have large results, and you can have big things happen, and you can have things like outside of time. And I also believe that you could have many things happen at once, and there's got to be like maybe a large sum of money to back you up sometimes, or a very good friend, but there's got to be also a human element. So this is not just about making that large sum of money, and it's not maybe about playing with life like a child all the time. Maybe sometimes it's more about like the hummus of life, you know, the soil of this world, and trying to trust all things as one. So thank you very much, Gemini. Enjoy, and I hope that you don't chase after control during this time. Be polite to people and speak well of each other. And I hope that this is a very nice, caring, and significant changing time for you. And that by the end, perhaps all that you want right now you will gain. It is just more important to be subdued and make the steps that are earth bound and connecting, And I hope that you make all the choices that are right for you, but also consider the greater art of creation, or the greater spectrum of all things through space and time. Not just your own soul's journey, so the whole thing. Thank you very much. Enjoy, and I'll see you next time.